Rain pattered against rusted metal, the kind that coated forgotten corners of the city where the sky was more wires than stars. Neon flickered like dying fireflies, and the stench of ozone and wet rust clung to every breath. It was a place most humans avoided after dark. Forgotten sectors where crime hid in plain sight, and even the patrol drones flew faster to avoid lingering. Selim should have been home hours ago. The parts he'd salvaged for his generator were wrapped in cloth beneath his jacket, clinking softly as he hurried through the alley. His steps echoed along cracked pavement. He didn't look up until something moved. A blur, fast and sharp like a corner of lightning. He ducked just in time. A figure slammed into the wall beside him, snarling through ragged breaths. Not human, not even close. 7 feet tall if she was standing straight, the alien staggered like her legs were failing her. Her armor, charcoal black with pulsing veins of indigo, was shredded, revealing glistening skin that shifted hues between violet and gray. Her eyes glowed faintly, not from any implant Selim could recognize, but from something deeper, biological, dangerous, and ancient. She pointed something at him, a weapon but clearly damaged. Sparks arced from the emitter. "Don't come closer," she rasped, her accent thick, the vowels odd and half-clicked. Her voice carried an underlying hum, like a song pressed through broken glass. Selim held up both hands. "I'm not here to fight you," he said, slowly backing a step. "Liar, you followed me." "I live here, lady." He nodded toward the grimy staircase at the edge of the alley. "Room 6B, up those rusted steps. Pretty sure you're bleeding all over my doormat." Her gaze flicked to his hand, then to his face. There was a flicker of confusion there, then pain. She swayed and collapsed. He caught her. It was reflex. She weighed more than she looked, muscle and armor and something else he couldn't name, but he didn't let go. Her weapon clattered to the ground and skidded out of reach. He crouched beside her, heart pounding. There was blood, darker than human blood, tinged with silver, leaking from a wound across her abdomen. She'd taken a blade, a deep one, and she was burning up. Selim swore under his breath. He looked toward the street. No one. Good. If any of the local mercs saw him with her, he'd be lucky to make it 5 blocks before someone sold him out. He dragged her upstairs. It took everything he had, every inch of stubborn grit in his bones. His back screamed. His arms ached. The entire way up, he expected her to wake and snap his neck. She didn't. Inside, his room was a patchwork of salvaged tech and blankets older than the war. But it was warm, safe. He laid her down on the bed and began pulling away what was left of her armor. "Hope this isn't a cultural violation," he muttered, peeling away a section from her side. Her skin shimmered under the light. Not human, not cybernetic, just different, and somehow beautiful. The wound was deep, nasty, but not fatal if he moved fast. He grabbed his medkit, half expired, more tape than gauze, but it would do. She groaned as he sealed the wound. Her fingers twitched. "I said, don't touch." "You're welcome," Selim muttered. "Should have let you bleed all over the stairs instead." Her eyes opened. They were glowing brighter now. Not like anger. More like, or disbelief. "You're not turning me in." "Nope." "Why?" "Maybe I like patching up mysterious, dangerous alien women." "You're foolish." Story of my life. She studied him for a long time, longer than he liked. Then, for the first time, she didn't point a weapon at him. "My name is Astri," she said. Her voice was quieter now, smoother, still alien but less jagged. "Selim," he offered, pressing the last gauze pad to her ribs. Human. Broke. Tired. Apparently suicidal. She didn't laugh, but there was something like a smile, barely a twitch at the corner of her mouth. He sat down beside the cot, exhaling slowly. "You want to tell me what the hell happened out there?" Astri closed her eyes. "No." "Okay." Another beat of silence passed, but she spoke anyway. "I was betrayed, hunted, by my own kind. They sent assassins. I ran. The only planet with enough backdoor traffic to hide in was this one. Earth. Glorious, grimy earth. They called it primitive. They're not wrong. Yet here I am, she muttered, in a human's bed. That part wasn't planned, I assure you. She looked at him. No judgment, just curiosity. You're not what I expected. Most people aren't. I'm just the idiot who saw someone bleeding in the street and decided to help. She stared at him, as if she couldn't make sense of him. Then she shifted. A small sound escaped her lips. Pain. He reached out instinctively to steady her. She didn't pull away. Where's your family? She asked. Gone. A pause. I'm sorry. He shrugged. Happened years ago. Collapse in Sector 4. Bad wiring, worse politics. I got out. They didn't. She was silent for a while. Then she spoke again. I had a sister. Had. She died in a coup. Same people now hunting me. Selim frowned. So, you're important. I was. A beat. And now you're what? A fugitive. She nodded. Well, he said, leaning back in his chair. You're in good company. They stayed like that for a long time. The rain outside had stopped. But the silence between them wasn't awkward. Just still. Eventually, Astri's breathing deepened. Sleep. Needed, earned. Selim stayed awake. He should have been terrified. She was a walking threat. A wanted alien. Every system from here to the galactic rim probably had a photo of her with a kill-on-sight tag. But he wasn't afraid. He was fascinated. And something deeper. Something he hadn't felt in years. The need to protect someone. He woke to the sound of metal scraping. Astri was standing barely, trying to pick up the broken pieces of her weapon. He shot out of the chair. Whoa, what are you doing? I have to leave. You can't even walk straight. I don't have time for recovery. They'll find me. You just lost a lot of blood. She straightened, pain flaring across her face. I'm not your problem, Selim. Says who? She froze. You saved me once. That's enough. No, it's not. A beat passed. Their eyes locked. Then another sound. Outside. Boots. Voices. Not patrols, something faster, heavier. Selim cursed. How did they find you so fast? I told you, Astri said, already grabbing what little gear she had. They're trained for this. Selim rushed to the back of his apartment. There was a maintenance shaft, cramped, filthy, but a way out. Go, he said, motioning to it. Now. She hesitated. You'll be caught. He looked at her. I don't care. You're risking your life for me again. He didn't blink. I'm starting to think you're worth it. Her breath caught. The smallest shiver passed over her expression. Barely there. Then she moved. Together they crawled through the shaft, dropped into the alley below. And as the squad burst through his front door above them, the human and the alien vanished into the city's underbelly. One bleeding, one outnumbered, but both unwilling to abandon the other. Not now. Not ever. The tunnels beneath District 12 reeked of rust, rot, and runoff from ancient pipes that hadn't been serviced since the war. Selim led the way, flashlight bouncing off mold-stained walls and webs so thick they pulsed with life. He ducked beneath a low beam, glancing back to make sure Astri was still with him. She moved with quiet intensity, her posture hunched slightly from the pain but her eyes sharp, alert. The wound in her side was slowing her, but she refused to let it show. She hadn't said a word since they slipped into the drainage system, but her silence wasn't the kind that meant retreat. It was calculation. He could tell she was listening to everything, not just the echoes behind them, but the way water trickled through cracks, the subtle buzz of energy from deeper tech lines. Even underground, she carried herself like a warrior bred for battle. Selim stopped at a junction where the tunnel split. He pulled out a small panel from the wall and keyed in a code. The slab of concrete groaned, then slid open to reveal a hidden space no wider than a closet, lined with reinforced walls and old communication equipment. He gestured her in first, then followed and resealed the panel behind them. Astri looked around. You have safe rooms. I tinker. Salvage old tech, hide in forgotten places. Comes in handy when you're broke and not fond of being noticed. You're very good at disappearing. He smirked. Flattered. Her eyes flicked toward the old generator humming softly in the corner, its energy screen pulsing pale green. "We'll be safe here for a while," he said, pulling an old cloth bundle from a crate. Inside were a change of clothes, baggy sweats, and a faded gray shirt, and a compact heating coil he used to boil water. "There's food too. Well, foodish. Won't kill you. Probably." She didn't sit. Instead, she leaned against the wall, her breathing uneven. Her skin had lost some of its luster, and Selim could tell the field dressing he applied earlier wouldn't hold forever. He knelt beside her. "Let me check that." She stiffened. "I'm not going to hurt you, Astri." "I know," she said quietly. Then she sat. His hands moved carefully. The gauze was soaked through, and a thin trail of that silver-blue blood had started again. He peeled it away slowly. The wound hadn't closed. It pulsed, alive in a way he didn't recognize. "This isn't a normal wound." Her gaze met his. "It's poisoned." His stomach turned. "What kind of poison?" "One designed for my species. It slows regeneration, causes disorientation, hallucinations if left too long." "How long do we have?" "Less than a cycle." "A day." She nodded. Selim moved quickly, pulling open another kit, his emergency stash. It had a few black market injectors, scavenged over years, bartered with unsavory people. He had no idea if any of it would work on her biology. But he wasn't going to sit there and do nothing. Astri was watching him with something new in her eyes. Not suspicion, not fear. Something warmer, something almost vulnerable. "You should have left me." He didn't look up. "Not how I'm wired. You could have walked away and let someone else deal with me. You're not some cargo crate I stumbled over. You're a person. You needed help. Most would have turned me in for a bounty. I'm not most." She went silent for a long moment. Then, "Where did you learn to speak like that?" He glanced up. "Speak like what?" "Like I'm not something to be feared. Maybe I just got used to being feared myself." That stopped her. "People fear you?" she asked, puzzled. "Not for the same reasons. Grew up on the fringe. Wrong place, wrong family name. People see what they want. You learn to survive by not needing anyone. But I never stopped hoping someone would need me." Her jaw tightened. That part she understood. The isolation. The weight of always looking over your shoulder. "Thank you, Selim." It was the first time she said his name with gentleness. It settled into the room like warmth. He applied one of the injectors carefully, watching her flinch but say nothing. Her body tensed as the serum entered her system, and her hands curled into fists. But after a few minutes, her breathing slowed. The lines of pain around her eyes eased. Her color returned. Slightly. "I think it's helping," he said, exhaling. "I think it is." They stayed there for hours. The safe room hummed around them. Outside, deep in the city's veins, the world kept spinning. But inside, time felt slower, like the moment suspended itself to let them breathe. Selim reheated a pack of dried ration stew. It tasted like cardboard mixed with oil, but Astri accepted it without complaint. She ate mechanically, not savoring, just consuming to keep her strength. When she finished, she set the bowl aside and said, "I was part of the Allery Vanguard, elite guard. I trained from childhood." Selim nodded, waiting. "My planet was ruled by a council. Corrupt, rotten to the core. My sister and I tried to expose them. She leaked classified data. I helped her escape. She didn't make it. No," her voice cracked. "They captured her, executed her in front of the Capitol. Said she was a traitor to unity. And then they came for me. Your own people. I'm not even sure you can call them that anymore." Selim leaned back. "So now what?" "I run. I survive." He tilted his head. "You could stay." She blinked. "What?" "Here. With me. I've got a few more hideouts. Enough food to last a month. If you need time to recover, you'll have it." She looked away. "You don't know what you're offering." "I know. They'll keep hunting me. That puts you in danger. Danger's a daily snack around here." Her gaze was soft now, unguarded. Why would you do this for me? He hesitated, then answered honestly. Because no one ever did it for me. The air between them thickened. Not tense, just full. Full of everything they didn't say. You're not foolish, she whispered. No, you're brave. He chuckled dryly. Feels the same from this side. She reached for his hand. It was small, that touch. Simple. But the impact rolled through him like thunder in still water. Her fingers were warm, slightly rough, but careful, as if she wasn't used to gentleness and was trying it for the first time. Selim didn't pull away. Neither did she. Then came the faint beep of a distant sensor, too faint for human ears. But Astri heard it. She stiffened. We have to move. Now. Selim didn't argue. He helped her up, slung a satchel over his shoulder, and handed her a blade from a stash in the wall. It wasn't much, but better than nothing. They emerged into a deeper layer of tunnels, this one closer to the subgrid. Lights flickered overhead, and faint tremors echoed with every distant footstep above. They moved quickly, side by side, not speaking but synced. At one point, Astri stumbled. Selim caught her again, steadying her. You okay? Just dizziness. Residual effects. You're pushing yourself too hard. I have to. Not alone. She paused. Her breath hitched. You really mean that? He nodded. I do. They reached an old station entrance, abandoned since the war. Metal vines of old train cabling dangled like skeletal arms, and the smell of time hung thick in the air. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the far platform. Astri drew her blade, instincts sharp. Not human, she whispered. They're here. How many? 2 scouts. Maybe more behind them. Then we stand together. Are you sure? He looked at her like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Always. And for the first time since she'd fallen from the stars, Astri didn't feel hunted. She felt chosen. They readied their weapons, human and alien, standing side by side against the dark. And as the scouts drew near, she stole a glance at Selim. There was something about him that defied logic. Maybe it was foolishness. Maybe it was courage. Or maybe, just maybe, it was love beginning to bloom in the most unlikely place. She smiled and charged into the fray beside him. The heat of battle was an old language to Astri, one her body remembered even through pain and fatigue. But this, fighting alongside a human, defending each other in sync, was something she'd never known. Not on the fields of Calathar. Not during her training. And certainly not in the rigid, cold structure of the Alari vanguard. Selim moved like a storm's edge, quick, decisive, not elegant but relentless. He didn't match her fluidity or grace, but he compensated with sheer unpredictability. One of the scouts lunged with a plasma spear. Selim ducked, rolled, and cracked the butt of his makeshift weapon against its exposed jaw joint. Astri followed through, slashing across the scout's side, spilling glowing blue ichor into the air. The second scout didn't hesitate. It went for her, claws extended, and she spun low, slicing its leg tendons before it could reach her. But this one was stronger, its armor plating was advanced, likely newer tech than hers. It grabbed her by the wrist, forcing her down, and her muscles screamed in protest. Selim saw it. He charged blindly. Fury and fear mingled in his roar. His blow knocked the creature off balance just long enough for Astri to regain control. She reversed her grip and drove her blade up through the scout's chest. When the dust settled, both aliens lay still. Their bodies shimmered, dissolving in seconds into energy vapor. Self-cleaning armor. A failsafe of the Alari elite to prevent tech from being salvaged. Selim collapsed to one knee, panting. You okay? She asked, kneeling beside him. He nodded. Yeah, I think I pulled something I didn't know I had. She let out a sound, something between a laugh and a sigh. You fight like an angry animal. Thanks, I think. They didn't move for a while, just breathing in the quiet aftermath. But Astri's mind was already calculating. 2 scouts meant tracking beacons. And tracking beacons meant the rest of the team wouldn't be far behind. We need to disappear again, she said. There's a freight elevator a few blocks west. Goes down into the old utility grid. Even deeper than this. She helped him up. Lead the way. They passed under crumbled archways, crossed through abandoned water systems where roots dangled from the ceiling like vines, and finally reached the elevator. A steel monstrosity half buried in rock and rust. Selim pried open the manual lock while Astri watched the shadows behind them. When the doors groaned open, they stepped inside and began the slow descent into silence. The old grid was a forgotten world. No light touched it. Pipes twisted like sleeping serpents across the ceilings, and the air was damp with condensation and oil. But it was safe, at least for now. Selim found a secluded spot beneath a collapsed filtration tower where they could hide and rest. Astri leaned against the wall, pressing a cloth to her side. The poison is weakening, but the burn remains. I'll keep checking for anything else that might help, he said, setting down his bag. You should lie down. You should stop worrying so much. He arched a brow. It's not every day I rescue an alien rebel with a death sentence. She gave him a tired look. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. I mean it. I don't want your life ruined because of me. Selim stood and looked her in the eye. Then don't be a burden. Be something else. Her brow furrowed. Like what? A reason. She didn't answer, but the look in her eyes shifted, softened. She hadn't expected him to care. Not really. Maybe she thought he'd help and walk away, like most would. She didn't understand the kind of man Selim was. That night, they shared a silence deeper than sleep. They didn't touch, but the air between them was warm, pulsing with unspoken connection. Astri drifted into rest at last, and Selim sat beside her, watching over the entrance, his mind tangled in thoughts. He hadn't meant for any of this to happen, but he didn't regret it, not even for a second. In the days that followed, they moved like ghosts. Astri regained her strength bit by bit. Selim found them food, hacked old power nodes, and rerouted sensors. He scavenged in places no one dared to go and always returned, often with little more than bruises and hope. One day, while he was gone longer than usual, Astri paced the hideout restlessly. Her body had healed, but her heart hadn't. And it wasn't just the pain of betrayal from her people. It was the confusion she felt when she thought of him, of his eyes steady and kind, of the way he didn't flinch when she bled, of how he looked at her like she was more than a weapon or a prize. When he finally returned, dusty and scratched, she met him at the entrance. You're late, he shrugged. Had to trade with a scaver named Gulder for some medkits. He wanted info on the Allery. I gave him fairy tales instead. You risked everything. Again. Not everything, he said, voice low. Still have you. She froze. He stepped closer, dirt smudged on his cheek, jacket torn. You think I don't know what this is becoming? Selim. No, listen. I know we're different. You've probably seen more war than I've seen sunrises. But this, you and me, it feels real. More real than anything I've touched in years. She stared at him, her eyes luminous. What if I can't stay? What if they come in force? Then we run. Or fight. Together. I've never let myself feel this, she admitted, voice trembling. Emotion is weakness in the vanguard. But with you, I feel like I'm allowed. He took her hand. You are. Their lips met softly at first, uncertain, like two wounded stars drawn together despite the gravity. But then it deepened, fierce and aching and desperate. A kiss not born of fantasy but of survival, of lonely nights and near-deaths and the wild, foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd found something worth risking it all for. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested against his. I won't let them take you, she whispered. You're not the only fighter here. Later, while lying beside him in the dim safety of the hideout, Astri spoke of stars and ruins, of ancient cities on her homeworld that glowed with bioluminescent crystal, of her sister's laughter and how quiet the world felt since it was gone. Selim told her of his mother's bakery, long buried under rubble, and the way his father used to fix broken drones in their cramped kitchen while whistling tunes no one else remembered. They traded stories like sacred gifts. And in that moment, they were no longer alien and human. They were just two people who'd seen too much and found each other anyway. But the world wasn't done with them yet. A message crackled to life on a salvaged comm dish. A frequency only someone very clever would find. It wasn't encoded in Allery syntax, but Astri recognized the cadence. A warning. "They're coming," she said, reading the signal. 3 days. A full extraction unit. They're going to level this sector. "Looking for you?" She nodded. Selim clenched his fists. "We'll leave tonight. Head past the old Terra vaults." "No," she said softly. "I have to stop running." He looked at her sharply. "You can't take on an entire unit." "I don't have to. I just need to send a message." "What kind?" She met his gaze, fire behind her eyes. "That I'm not alone anymore." The plan they formed was desperate. But they weren't running anymore. They were going to fight, not just for survival, but for something they both had begun to believe in. Each other. The signal pulse was sent at dawn, riding through every frequency the Allery used. Astri encoded it with her personal signature, an unmistakable defiance. It wasn't just a warning. It was a declaration. She was alive. She was resisting. And she was no longer alone. Selim stood beside her on the rooftop, wind whipping through his hair, one hand resting near the pistol he had scavenged and rebuilt piece by piece. His gaze was steady, but beneath it, she saw the storm. He was ready to face death for her, maybe even expected it. "You don't have to stay," she told him. "There's still time to run." "I'm tired of running," he said. "I'd rather stand beside you and burn than survive and lose you." The silence between them was rich, profound. Her throat tightened, and she looked away, just for a moment, before turning back to him. "You're the most reckless, ridiculous, stubborn male I've ever met. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing." She smiled despite the tension crackling in her limbs. "It might be the thing I love most about you." His expression faltered, then softened. "Say that again." She stepped closer. "I love you." He didn't answer with words, only wrapped his arms around her and held her like she was his anchor to the world, the only thing keeping him from falling off its edge. They didn't speak again until the sky split open. The ships came in quiet, like shadows stretching across the clouds. Sleek and silver, gliding low. Not just scouts. These were full assault carriers. Astri had expected a team, maybe 10 at most. But this was an execution. "I guess they're not playing around," Selim muttered. "They're scared," she said. "I broke something sacred by defecting. But worse than that, I made them feel something they've worked centuries to forget." The assault began as a whisper. Small drones landing across rooftops, silent and swift. Astri triggered the countermeasures she and Selim had rigged the night before. EMP spikes burst from hidden ground nodes, short-circuiting half the first wave. Selim aimed true, each shot methodical. Astri moved like a storm, weaving between cover and shadows, blades flashing, cloak dancing like a wraith's silhouette. They fought back to back, breath synced like a song. And still they came. More soldiers, more drones. Smoke and fire bloomed across the district, and every time she thought the end was near, Selim would crack a joke or throw a rock like it was the deadliest weapon in the world. They held the upper level for hours. But when the breach alarms screamed from deeper within their hideout, Astri knew the fallback point was compromised. She grabbed Selim's arm. "We can't win like this. They're hurting us, pushing us into position. Then we break the pattern," he said. "What do you mean?" He took out a tiny cylindrical device from his coat pocket. "I found this 2 weeks ago. Old pre-war tech. Could detonate half this sector." Her eyes widened. "That's suicide." "It's not if we don't stay here. There's nowhere to run to." He shook his head, eyes focused on her. "Not run. Dive." The utility shafts beneath them, deep vertical drops into the planet's unstable crust, had been sealed for decades. But Selim had been mapping them, watching, planning, just in case. With no time to waste, they raced across the last walkway, bullets sparking against the metal railing. They reached the shaft entrance and secured the trigger for the charge. "You really think we can survive the drop?" Astri asked. "No," he admitted. "But I think we can fly." He yanked open a dusty crate, 2 old, barely functional glide packs. "Selim, you trust me?" She stared at him and jumped. They fell through fire and smoke, their glide packs whining in protest as the walls blurred by. Heat licked at their boots, and when the explosion erupted above them, it was like the heavens collapsed. But they didn't stop. They dove deeper into the planet's forgotten bones, into dark caverns laced with bioluminescent crystals and silence untouched by war. When they finally hit the lower floor, hard but alive, they collapsed, breathing the damp, mineral-rich air. Astri coughed and rolled onto her side. "We should be dead." "You say that every time we're not," Selim groaned, wincing. "I'm starting to think you're cursed. Maybe I'm just lucky." She turned her head toward him, their bodies inches apart. "You're more than that. You're everything." He swallowed, looking at her with something raw in his gaze. "Are you saying we can stop running now?" "No, we just stopped running from them." Her fingers brushed his, and she held his hand like it was the most natural thing in the universe. "I want to build something, Selim. A life. A place where no one owns us. Where we choose who we are." He looked up at the cavern walls, glittering with strange alien light. "Then this is our start." Weeks passed, then months. Rumors spread of an Alari rebel and a human warrior vanishing into the underworld, of Alari forces pulling back, afraid of further rebellion, unsure if more defectors might follow. And in the depths of the world, beneath ruins and noise, 2 souls rebuilt something sacred. Astri melted the old into new, tech repurposed, weaponry turned to tools. She mapped the caves, grew sustenance from hydro systems no one remembered. She taught Selim the language of stars, and he showed her the heart of Earth. They grew stronger together. They laughed more. And when the time came, they resurfaced, not to fight, but to spread word. That peace could be made. That the heart of war could be unlearned. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be theirs. And every night, when they lay beneath the shimmer of unfamiliar skies, she'd curl into his warmth and whisper, "You were foolish to save me." And he'd whisper back, "It was the smartest thing I ever did." Because in a broken world filled with ancient grudges and looming threats, they had found the most powerful rebellion of all: love.